not your keys, not your coins. That message won. They think they're protected because the technology works. They don't realize the technology was the easy part. Understanding that threats don't come as obvious attacks. They come as messages that look legitimate, as websites that look real, as urgency that feels rational. More times than I care to count that I've heard, I know, you told me, I know I wasn't supposed to share the wallet backup. They knew the rule. The rule didn't protect them. Your users are not failing because your product is bad. All right, I want to start with a question for you to consider. How many of you have personally sat with someone, a completely new user in the space, helped them set up a hardware wallet for the first time, and watched them go through that experience? Not a developer, not a builder, or someone who's been in the space for years. I mean, to have sat with an entirely new person in the space, heard their questions, seen where they hesitate, watched what they skip, noticed what they nod at but don't actually understand. I ask because that's my job. That's what I do every day. Cool. So my name is Shawn Engleman. I'm a Trezor expert. What that means in practice is that I conduct one-on-one video consultations with people who are new and entering self-custody, many of them for the first time. I walk them through device setup. I explain the importance of the wallet backup. I cover the threats they're most likely to encounter. And I try to make sure that when they leave the session, that they don't just have a wallet, that they have the understanding to keep what's in it. Over 2 years, I've conducted over 500 sessions, and I want to share with you that vantage point because I think it's something important happening in this space that isn't being recognized, and it's important. Sorry. There we go. So, I want to first acknowledge that this industry has actually accomplished something remarkable. Not your keys, not your coins. That message won. It's everywhere. It's in posts. It's in podcasts. It's on merchandise. People who have never touched a hardware wallet can recite it. The idea that you should hold your own keys, that self-custody is the point of all of this, that argument has been made and accepted at a scale not imagined 10 years ago. And the tools caught up. Trezor has been building hardware wallets for over a decade, pioneering open source security from the very beginning. The devices are better. The interfaces are cleaner. The onboarding flows are polished. If the message landed, not your keys, not your coins, and the tools improved, why are people still losing Bitcoin in ways that have nothing to do with the technology? Why am I still sitting across from users who completed the onboarding, confirmed they understood the importance of the wallet backup, left the session happy-go-lucky, and contacted me weeks later because they fell for a phishing scam, or because they stored their wallet backup in a cloud application, or because they thought the initial setup was the entire process and never considered what comes next. This is the gap that I want to talk about today. It's not a technology gap. It's an education disconnect. Cool. Part of what makes this hard to see from a builder's perspective is that the people entering self-custody today are not the same people who entered the space 10 years ago. The early adopters many of you in this room, it was the reason you showed up. Actually, I got that wrong, sorry. The concept of key management wasn't foreign to you. It was the reason that you showed up. That's not who I am onboarding today. The person I'm sitting across from today, they found Bitcoin because someone on social media told them that it was important. Their research was a 10-minute video. Their decision to buy a hardware wallet was based on the recommendation of an influencer, not a deep understanding of how or why Bitcoin self-custody matters. And I want to be very clear, there's nothing wrong with that. That's how adoption works. That's how any technology goes mainstream. The early users are technical, the next wave are less technical. That's not a failure, that's success. But here's what we haven't fully recognized. The education model that worked for the first wave doesn't work for this one. The first generation of self-custody users didn't need to be taught what a private key was. They needed better tools. They got better tools. This generation doesn't need better tools. They need better education, and they're not getting it. Sorry. One of the most important patterns that I see across hundreds of sessions is what I call the Setup Mirage. It's a false confidence. The breakdown. A new user gets their device, they open up the box, they follow the instructions to set it up. 15 minutes later, the device is set up, the written wallet backup has been recorded, they're looking at their shiny new hardware wallet and they're ready to receive Bitcoin. And in that moment, the overwhelming feeling is that I did it. The hard part's done. But it's not. The hard part hasn't even started. The hard part is understanding that the words they just recorded are not a password that you can simply reset. It's understanding that backup in this context doesn't mean what it means everywhere else in their digital life. It's understanding that the security of their Bitcoin is now permanently tied to their own behavior, not to a company, not to a support team, not to a recovery process that someone else controls. And the hard part is understanding that threats don't come as obvious attacks. They come as messages that look legitimate, as websites that look real, as urgency that feels rational. None of that is covered by the initial device setup. And most of the new users don't know they need to learn it because nobody told them that the setup was only the beginning. Think about that from a builder's perspective. You've created an elegant, secure onboarding flow. The user completed it successfully. Every checkpoint was satisfied. But the user walked away with a fundamental misunderstanding of what just happened. They think they're protected because the technology works. They don't realize that the technology was the easy part. Oh, cool. So I want to give you a sense of what that looks like in practice, not any one story, but the patterns. I've sat with users who completed a full onboarding session, not a quick setup, where I spent significant time explaining the importance of the wallet backup, what it protects, why exclusive control is non-negotiable, and exactly what happens if that control is compromised. They acknowledged every warning. They left the session confident. And within weeks, they're the victim of a phishing scam. The wallet backup was compromised. More times than I care to count that I've heard, I know, you told me. I know I wasn't supposed to share the wallet backup. They knew the rule. The rule didn't protect them. I've sat with users who stored their wallet backup digitally, screenshot, notes application, cloud backup, not because they didn't hear me say not to, but because in every other area of their digital life, that's exactly how you protect important information. You back it up to the cloud. You save a copy. The instinct that serves them everywhere else is the exact instinct that puts their Bitcoin at risk here. Cool. And I've sat with users who got cold feet. They got through the device setup. They understood theoretically what self-custody means, and they simply stopped. They didn't send funds. They didn't further engage. The burden of sole responsibility, having no safety net, no support team that can reverse a mistake, was more than they were prepared for. These aren't edge, because knowing the rule and understanding the implication are two completely different things. These aren't edge cases, they're patterns, and they share a common root, the disconnect between what we told people self-custody is and what we actually prepared them for. So what do we do about it? I want to be honest about where I sit in this. I am not a developer. I'm not a builder. I don't write firmware or design the interface. I'm a self-custody educator. My career has been spent in high-stakes environments where the margin for error is zero, and my role as an educator is consistent, sitting between complex systems and the people they're supposed to protect. What every one of those environments has taught me is one thing: how to sit across from someone who is confused, overwhelmed, afraid, and make them feel capable. That's a human behavioral skill, understanding how people actually think, react, and make decisions when the stakes are real. This industry has optimized for technical excellence. It has not optimized for the human being on the other end. And that gap isn't unique to this space. It's endemic across technology. Because the tools are good. The security architecture, it's solid. The people building them are doing serious, important work. But there is a disconnect between what gets built and who ends up using it. And the people in the front line of that disconnect, the ones who see where users actually struggle, where they misunderstand, where they give up, that feedback isn't reaching the people who need to hear it, or the people who need to hear it are not listening. My role puts me in the middle. I see the user side, I understand the builder side, and the fact that this role exists, that Trezor built an expert program specifically to put a human face between the technology and the person using it, a real person on a video conference call, walking somebody through something that genuinely matters to win or to them, tells you that at least one company in this space recognized the disconnect early enough to do something about it. What I've learned from more than 500 of these conversations is something I think is worth saying plainly to a room full of developers and builders. Your users are not failing because your product is bad. They're failing because the education around your product doesn't exist in a meaningful way. And that's not their fault. It's not entirely yours either, but it's a disconnect. And the first step to solving it is recognizing that it exists. I'll leave you with the principle that guides how I work with every single person who sits across from me in a consultation. I meet the user where they are, not where I assume they are, not where the documentation assumes they are, not where the onboarding flow assumes they are, but where they actually are. And where they actually are right now in 2026 is further behind than most people in this room recognize. Not because they're not smart, not because they're not motivated, but because the path from not your keys, not your coins, to truly understanding what self-custody demands of you is longer and harder than this industry has been willing to say out loud. Self-custody won the argument, but winning the argument was only the first step. The real work, the education, the support, the human side of this technology, that's the part this industry still hasn't recognized. And I believe recognizing it is the most important thing we can do next. Thank you very much.